Okay, guys, we are live. So, for those listening at home, welcome to the Live from the Sword Coast podcast. My name is Kevin Madison, and I will be your friendly dungeon master today. Today, I wanted to hop on. We've got a stream later on tonight where we're actually playing some games, but our Delta Green campaign that we have been running on the channel has now come to a conclusion before any story or whatever else conclusion has come up. And I want to talk about why as well too. I've in the past we've really just kind of had campaigns fade away, and I haven't talked about the reason for why we're not streaming it on the channel anymore. And this time I wanted to this year or going forward, I want to make sure that if campaigns do ground to a halt, I want to make sure that the viewers know what the reason for that was. If you maybe have been interested in watching it, or if you just want to have a cautionary tale as to what went wrong, or at least I'm going to be guessing at what went wrong. So the campaign originally was one of many games I was running this year, and the plan was to run Delta Green. For those who are unfamiliar, is a role-playing game published by Arc Dream Publishing, which is basically a nutshell version, which is not quite doing it justice, is X-Files meets Call of Cthulhu. It's a thing where you take up, you kind of are the part of an organization that takes up arms against these like existential threats to mankind. And the most recent edition has 2 books to it. It's the Agent's Handbook and then the Handler's Guide. And the game itself is really fucking cool. Like I really love this game. I've run it for a short campaign a couple of years ago when just the Agent's Handbook was out, and it was a lot of fun. And I've gone back to it once as to start a one shot, and then we kind of got distracted by something else, and that was running a pre-made adventure. And then this time I started a new campaign, and I had a couple of different ideas I wanted to try out for it. One of which was to involve viewers. I wanted to try and create a place I had a community on MeWe where I was going to be posting information about the campaign, and with the idea being that, the viewers could help kind of piece together what's going on, because, and this is spoilers for, I guess not spoilers, because the campaign's not happening anymore. What I was doing is I was using Night Black Agent's Dracula dossier. This is a very cool product that is published for the Knights Black Agents role-playing game. And the Knights Black Agents game is basically, it uses the, what is it called? Not Icon. I don't remember the name of the system. It'll come to me later, but it uses a different style of, or mechanics, I guess, games mechanics to drive the game. It uses the same mechanics that drive ESO Terrorists and Mutant City Blues and Trail of Cthulhu. Gumshoe is the name of the system. And what the thing that really appealed to me about this was it is it's an improvised conspiracy. So, there's all this amazing material in here that you can just use as the campaign goes along. And, and by that, I mean, characters, there's tons of, oh boy, I'll see if I can do this justice here. There's tons of characters, and the characters that are in here are all things that can fill different roles in the game. So there's different options for names and what their role is, how they relate to the conspiracy, who Dracula is in this, as well as the locations, and then items and stuff like that. Like it's just a great, it's really a cool product, and I've wanted to use it. I tried using it with Knights Black Agents game before, but that kind of I fucked that up as well. So that one kind of the wheels came off, and this one I didn't do a good enough. There's a couple things I think I did wrong here. So I wanted to quickly get on and for one say, look, we're not playing Delta Green, at least not that campaign anymore, and that's why you're seeing us running different things on Wednesdays now, is because it's just not the game. I was not feeling it click. Like in comparison to a lot of the other games I was running, I just wasn't as excited to run it. And that I've learned over the years that when I start having that nagging thing, there's 2 options I have. Is one is dramatically shake things up and change a lot of fundamental things about the campaign, or I just pull the plug and say this is probably not working. And that's what I decided to do in this one, is because I just didn't feel like it was working, in particular in comparison to how excited I have been to run a lot of the other games that I'm running right now. But that is not anything to do with Delta Green necessarily. What I think one of the errors I made in this was taking a product that would have been played in a really cinematic, high octane kind of way, because the way that Night's Black Agents is billed is as a Jason Bourne meets Jason Bourne meets Dracula, and it's super spies versus a vampiric conspiracy of some kind, and that game really plays up the cinematic and high action, action movie kind of concepts in that, which means that you can intersperse your game with really crazy action, action as well as slower, paced things, conspiracy things. But even then, like, the players are either involved in really dramatic action things, or they're using the skills they have to help figure out and unravel more evidence of the conspiracy and help to uncover it and take action against it. Gumshoe gives you the resources as a player to be able to do that stuff, so you are feeling proactive at all points. What I did in contrast, instead of really throwing things in the first session of our Delta Green game, I did start things off on I think a thematically appropriate tone, but then we had like 2 or 3 other sessions where all we really did was just talk. And that's 4 hours of nothing happening right at the start of a campaign and just setting more and more mysteries. That was a terrible choice on my part. I thought that I would try for a slow burn with this particular game, and what I forgot is that, like, you still have to have something burning, and I think that the way that it rolled out was just not very exciting. And with how things had been going in the other games I've been running, where every session felt satisfying and it felt eventful, that by contrast felt really lame. I also, the more we were getting on, the more I just wasn't. I think that I wasn't doing a good enough job to give the players reasons to be, for their characters to be invested in what was going on. I tried to do that with some flashbacks to try and get a sense of who these characters are, and then figure out what their motivations would be and why they'd want to pursue this stuff. But I think there was a couple points where the players were just like, I don't know why my player gives a shit about this stuff. Like, why would I not run away? Why would I not just go? And we had talked about the initial part of the campaign about, like, you need to make characters who are interested in pursuing, like, they've got a reason for pursuing this supernatural. But I don't think that I did a good enough job of reminding the players of that stuff. And in any event, it just felt like there was some times where that can happen in horror games sometimes, where it's just like, well, why the fuck am I doing? Like, why would I ever go down this dark hallway? Why would I ever put myself in further danger? Like, it doesn't make sense that I would do this stuff. And one of the things that I could have done differently is if I just not worried about, like, surprising them and introducing them to Delta Green and just thrown them into the deep end of things. There's another adventure that I've used to set that stuff up in Delta Green before. It's from the original Delta Green product, which is this guy right here. And it's a great kind of mystery, like some, people who, by the end of the adventure, which takes maybe like 4 or 5 hours to play, the players are thrown into this, both the players and the characters are thrown into the deep end. So they don't need to know a lot about Delta Green beforehand. It hooks them into it at the start of the adventure. And that's not how, that's not, I think, how it is assumed you're going to play the game. So not only did I go against the assumption of the game in one sense, in, like, not starting the players off or the characters off as members of Delta Green, I sort of, like, had to walk the characters into that. I did a bad job of that. And in addition, I don't think that by adopting a different kind of slow burn conspiracy thing, I don't think I did a very good job of that either, because I wasn't even, apart from one scene one scene at the very first session, one scene in the last session we had, I don't think there was a lot of, like, there wasn't the tension. There was no building up of tension and building up of mystery. There was just a lot of boring stuff. And one element that I thought was gonna hit hard, it went over like a Led Zeppelin, where no one really, the thing that was the reveal of their contact, who in the game, I'd cast him as Matt McConaughey, and he was, like, healthy and young and whatnot in some of the early ones, and they see him and he's dying. And I didn't get the sense that the players really gave a shit about that. So, I mean, that wasn't a good job on my part either. And also, I mean, like using something that isn't the stuff in Delta Green. Delta Green is very ensconced and incorporates a lot of the Cthulhu mythos, you know, the Lovecraftian elements. The Marshall's Guide has great advice for how to make use of the different types of kind of, you know, things that would be moving against mankind. So the Migo, the you know, great race of Yith, the Deep Ones, the Chochos, the like all sorts of different, really the classic Lovecraftian monsters, cults. All that stuff is there in the Handler's Guide, and rather than take advantage of all the very like, look how thick this sucker is. This is all just, you know, mostly ideas. All the rules are in the Agent's Handbook. So this is just like really great campaign material you can make use of. I made use of none of it. I just decided to go with the vampire one instead, and that was not a good decision either, because I think that when the players, I don't know, like the thing about the Dracula dossier is, as much as I love the product, there's always that feeling in my mind that like Dracula is so played out that it's not, when the players realize it's a vampire, it's going to be so much less disturbing and less scary, I think, than almost any other kind of horror thing. Like any other kind of Lovecraftian horror, there's that wrongness, there's that like, oh Jesus, what is that stuff? Whereas Dracula is such a, you know, it's such a part of popular culture, to the point of, you know, we've got a ersatz Dracula who teaches kids to count on Sesame Street. I think that it's difficult to keep that character as a credible threat. And I was, in retrospect, I think I was so leery of letting the cat out of the bag, the vampiric cat out of the bag, as it were, that that affected how much I was willing to play out, you know, at the so there's that too. And I mean, I don't, you know, when you play Nice Black Agents or campaign of that, everyone knows what you're doing. Everyone knows you're going to be taking arms against vampires, maybe Dracula, maybe not Dracula. And so, you know, there isn't, everyone's buying into that expectation. And I think the bait and switch that I was planning on doing with this, I had serious doubts for that as soon as I started, you know, reading through the Handler's Guide. I'm like, oh man, there's so much other cool stuff I could do. And to its credit, I mean, the Dracula dossier Director's Handbook, this sucker here, it does talk about a lot of those issues, and it gives you great strategies for, you know, getting around the fact that like Dracula is really kind of like a dime store, you know, monster. Is there a way of making that a credible and scary thing? So it's in there. It's just, I don't think I did either I did a poor job of it, or I was so leery. I was so confident that it was going to fall flat that I avoided diving into that stuff. And it also gives great options for reskinning it to being different kinds of vampires. You know, for instance, you know, instead of being a supernatural thing, it could be alien, or it could be some kind of Lovecraftian horror, or it could be some infernal satanic pact, you know. So there's lots of, it could be high-tech, you know, surgery stuff. There's lots of great options for putting your Dracula campaign through different lenses. I went against my gut instinct on it and just did not run the game that I really should have run. In retrospect, what I should have done is had the play either start with the adventure that I had started other campaigns with before, because it is a really, and for those who may actually have the original Delta Green book, the one I'm talking about is called, oh boy, what is it? Not the big picture. Where is it? Maybe it is called that. No, it's not. Where's the darn adventure? In any event, it's just really neat. I don't want to spoil anything from it if anyone is going to end up playing the game or wants to run the game for the characters, because I think you can get this fairly easily now in print format. Puppet Shows and Shadow Plays. That's the name of the adventure, and it's awesome. You set in Arizona. It's a pretty straightforward FBI investigation thing, and it's a really cool adventure. Good twist. Yeah, good stuff, and that sets up the campaign where players are not playing characters that are already part of Delta Green. Alternatively, I could have just said, like, look, you're a cell from Delta Green. I have all the adventures that are out to date, and any one of those could have been a great way to kick off a Delta Green campaign. But nope, I had to do it my own way, and I made quite a few mistakes. I think that that made for that campaign just not be firing the way I wanted it to. So as a result of that, that's why we've pulled the pin on it. I think that I will definitely be going back to Delta Green at some point. I think what I'm going to start with is a one shot. What I want to get is get the kind of the juices flowing again with Delta Green, to remind myself of why I love that game so much. It's worth. I've done a review of the Agent's Handbook on the channel before, so you can find that under my playlist for the reviews. But this is my favorite expression of a Cthulhu role-playing game, hands down. I think it does a great job of baking in a reason for why your characters are going into these insane fucking places and putting themselves at such crazy danger. And I love the rules for how this affects, like there are rules in the game of how it impacts on your home life as well too. And I think that's something that is pretty rich and could make for some really great role-playing and great storytelling. I just think that I did a bad job of syncing up a overarching campaign structure with that. And then what I'd like to do is run something that is thoroughly Delta Green first, and then figure out what what lessons I could learn from that to structure a better campaign. I mean, one starting point, because at the time of recording, it's about a week off from 82 years since H.P. Lovecraft passed away. So I had been, as a commemoration, listening to a shit ton of his short stories and novellas on podcast. So I've just been thinking about Lovecraft a whole bunch in the last little while. And it really, it's not that the game wasn't something I would enjoy running, and it's not that it's something that I don't think would work well in a campaign. I think that I did a bad job of how I set up that campaign and how I approached it, and the material I chose to have as the kind of bedrock for that. So for those, I mean, obviously for my players, I apologize for not setting up a better starting point for our campaign. I'm hoping that we can, fortunately, I play with pretty much everybody else who's in that campaign in one way or another, so it wasn't a total loss. But for the viewers as well, too, who may have been invested in the campaign, I really apologize that we didn't carry on with it. I just think that, the thing with role-playing games is, because the work that goes in on everyone's part, setting aside the time to play in it, it is important. I mean, how many other games there are available to play as well. It's good to recognize when something's just not working, and because of how I approached the campaign, because of how I set up all the characters, I didn't think it was something that it would be easily remedied. I would rather just start fresh with some new characters, a new setup, and then approach the game that way and see if the players genuinely like it, because it is a great game. Like, it's a really, really fun game. We ran a campaign for this that lasted about 6 months, and tellingly, I stuck to more Cthulhu-esque stuff in that campaign. I stuck more to the kind of existential threat stuff, repurposed some 7th edition Call of Cthulhu adventures, ran some older Delta Green adventures, rather than trying to incorporate something that has two very different sensibilities to it. One is the gothic horror element of Dracula, rather than the cosmic horror of Lovecraft, and also the high octane, what do you call it? Action movie sensibilities of Nice Black Agents versus this, so anyway, that's it. So I am very sorry that for those who have been watching the campaign, I am sorry that it's not going to carry on, but I do promise to revisit Delta Green at some point in the future, and to do it justice in a better either one shot or series of adventures, or who the fuck knows. Anyway, as always, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns regarding this video, please don't hesitate to leave a comment in the comment section below. You can also reach me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Dungeon Musings, and you can also shoot me an email at dungeonmusings@gmail.com. That's my address, my email address. In addition, you may be aware that I've got a podcast, and on the podcast cleverly called Dungeon Musings, available on all fine platforms everywhere. So Stitcher, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, all those, Anchor. You can find those. And the reason I mention that is because I talked a lot about the issues I was having with Delta Green on that podcast. A lot of times some of the episodes I talk either in total or in part about the different campaigns, how they're going, how they're changing, and so forth. So if you enjoy this chat or post-mortem, that's mostly what the content is on the podcast, is that kind of stuff and other theory stuff. Anyway, I have a session to prep for tonight, so I should really get to that because I have some player characters who are expecting some sinister gothic horror action tonight. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, folks, and again, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, or suggestions on if you were a viewer of the campaign, other things that I missed, things that you felt were not as strong as they could be, things that could have been improved, I'm happy to hear about that as well. I'm always looking to improve as a DM. So otherwise, thanks so much for watching again, folks, and happy gaming.